Hi everyone, Jordan here with Munro Associates. I'm here with Dirk, who's with Decks and Docks. He's the sales manager at Decks and Docks.
Hey everybody.
But Dirk's been in this industry for what, 35?
34 years,
right.
35 years.
So one of the things that we're finding out, as we're coming to this show, is this is a very big but also incredibly small industry. And Dirk's one of these guys that as we're walking about the show, we're interfacing with people, you seem to have an incredible knowledge, which is super exciting to see. But part of that, when we look at the docks and everything that we're seeing on the floor here, I want to get some thoughts from you. Like, what have you seen changing in the industry? Like down to prices of materials as you're ordering these docks, and doing all of this. Like, what are the things that you're seeing really drive this industry right now from a cost perspective? As you're selling these docks, have you seen an influx in the customer reception, and how are you managing all of that?
Great questions.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to answer that in basically three ways.
Yeah.
What's driving interest is because this is a leisure product. So when you're playing with someone's leisure dollars, they usually will spend whatever it takes. So if they're into snowmobiling, they're going to do everything they can to enjoy that hobby. If they're into boating, this is their leisure dollars, they're going to do everything they can, whether it be a new boat or a used boat. Now, interestingly enough, people, when they buy a boat, they also want to protect it. And so they got a lot of money sitting there, so they want to drive their interest in taking care of it, so they'll purchase a boat lift. One of the interesting things about these boat lifts is they've gotten a lot more expensive over the years. So 20 years ago, you could purchase this boat lift, not with all the bells and whistles, so to speak, but a bare bones boat lift for right around $5,000. This particular unit is going to go for right around $30,000. Now, some of the things that people like to do in protecting their boat is they want to get on a boat, use it, put it away, and not cover or clean it.
Right.
So what that ends up doing is you come up with new types of features, such as a curtain. So like one of the features on this, people don't want to cover their boat. You might want to step aside. So this is one of the features that people like. You can cover the boat without physically putting a boat cover on it. That though does end up driving up the cost.
Sure.
So an option like this can cost right around $5,000 to $6,000, depending upon how big of a lift they get.
Sure.
And everything's all weight capacity driven. So the biggest thing that's also changing in our market is that everyone wants a bigger boat. Well, years ago, most boats were right around 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. Well, with the advent of surfing, boats are now weighing 6,000 to 7,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Normally, you could get, the boat lift would last longer than the boat.
Right.
But now as the boats have gotten bigger, the boat lifts have to get bigger.
Yeah, heavier boat, better wake, better,
all
the
of
wake
that,
surfing.
all
Right,
of that.
right, right.
So now we went from selling 4,000 pound lifts. Now it's not uncommon, we're selling 8,000 to 10,000 pound lifts. Perfect example, down here you got Malibu Boats. I think they got 18 boats in their lineup. 6 of them are over 6,000 pounds.
Wow.
When Malibu Boats were still first making them, they didn't have a boat that topped 3,500 pounds.
Yeah.
So now you have to create a bigger lift. So go ahead.
So beyond, like obviously adding features from, Munro is looking at cost, manufacturing, engineering enablers, how to do all of that with cost in mind, do it cost effectively, but not degrade performance. Have you seen any major differences in manufacturing techniques? Like how have these evolved over the past, 5 to 10 years? Is it mostly the same and we're just adding features, or have you seen real like revolutions in the manufacturing techniques?
Great question, and both. So what makes this particular product, some of the larger manufacturers such as Shore Station and Flow, is scalability. How can they bring this to market so other places can use it? So these types of lifts, they're actually nut and bolted together. Very, very few welded fixtures on this particular lift. It's also done that for serviceability and also be able to knock it down for transportation. If you've got this whole thing completely built, which there are some in this area, it's a full welded construction, but it's almost impossible to get delivered if it's 120 inches wide going down the road.
It's there.
Right. Also for repair and serviceability, if you got something that's broke, you gotta get it out of the water. With some of the better built lifts, everything is nut and bolt, so everything's serviceable. You can take it apart and put it back together.
Sure.
Now, in terms of manufacturing, the engineering things that we've seen are different tops. So years ago, you'd see a top that looked like this one over here. Just a piece of structure with some conduit, and they put a piece of fabric over it. Well, as people's tastes change, what they end up doing is they want something that looks more architecturally pleasing. So Shore Station actually had the same canopy for roughly 40 years. And up until about 8 years ago, they came up with this new style. So for them, it's a huge step in trying to have something that's more physically appealing.
Yeah.
Whereas the older style, when the breeze hit, it'd move around. Well, it didn't lend itself to the ears because you're sitting on your dock and you hear something flop around.
It's kind of a perceived quality function.
It's all it is. And a lot of things when it comes to this is simplistic.
Yeah.
How easy it is to service. So one of the unique features on this, and which makes it a little bit more expensive, this is what we would call a dual lift. It's a dual pole. So this cable and that cable is picking up the cradle.
Yep.
If you take a look at some of the other manufacturers, their cradle beams are a lot thicker, but they're only using one cable to pick it up. Well, if you only have one cable picking up the whole cradle, and you don't want the cradle to get tweaked,
or bind, right?
you have to use thicker beams.
Right.
So it's trying to do less with more.
Right.
So it costs more
for
you
a
also have
dual
less
cable
metal.
system.
Correct.
Right, so less mass on the lift, meaning what the motor actually has to pick up. Not that the aluminum's obviously not the heavy part, but still it's weight that you're taking out. And just inherently, right, if you've ever tried to pick up a plate with one hand that's full versus two hands, the two-hand option is going to be better. It's going to feel way easier, right? So it's presumably the same concept, and it's going to eliminate binding. Do you find that that relates to better life and service as well because of the binding?
Much better. Because
Yeah.
what we'll find in some of these lifts, if you go around, a boat lift's a boat lift. Everyone just wants something to protect their boat.
Yeah.
And so if someone's going to spend, let's say a competitor may have one that's at $20,000, and I'm $10,000 more, I have to explain to them or show them the value of that $10,000.
Sure.
Because over time, that lift will break down.
Yep.
And you don't want something that's going to break, or better yet, you can't replace or repair.
Yeah.
So what's nice about these lifts is this one's a little bit lighter in weight capacity to pick up and move, whereas others are super heavy.
Yep.
Now, the biggest problem is getting these things in and out of the water. So now we have to use barges.
Yeah.
Before, you could have 3 or 4 guys to pick it up, but this unit right here weighs right around 1,500 pounds.
Yeah, you're not going to have 4 guys do
You're
it.
not going to have 4 guys picking it up.
Right, right.
You're just not.
Especially waterlogging or whatever else. Yeah, exactly.
So we just have it's a forklift on the water.
Yep.
It's a barge, scoops it up, puts it on shore, and done for the season.
So looking at the stand, I mean, we look diagonally, right? There's a whole nother section of this.
That's a flow.
You've got all these, I don't know if composite docks, floating docks, rollers in the docks, but even just like relative to the aluminum systems that we're seeing here, how are manufacturers and decks and docks managing the complexity, right? I don't know how many variants of this dock you have. Do you keep a common cross section with the beams cut to length in order to accommodate, or are they all unique?
The different weight capacity lifts all stem from the wall thickness of the tube on the corner post.
Yep.
So if you were to look at, let's say, a 4,000 pound up to an 8,000 pound lift, they're going to look identical. There are some parts commonality in them, such as the cradles, the bunks, what we call the added fixtures. The tube, this is a 4-inch tube. It's going to be the same size as it is on a 10K, 10,000 pound,
but it's
the wall thickness.
Okay, so that's how you're getting your strength.
Correct.
So for these clamps or some of these things that attach to the post, you may be able to keep some of those components, some of those hoops, those clamps common, but because you're managing the strength on the interior of the section,
not on the exterior,
rather than growing the cylinder.
Correct.
Got it.
Now, but this is Shore Station's idea, so the footprint's all the same. Now, if we go to the other products that we also carry, this one here has got some actually revolutionary ideas. And what's cool about this one, if you take a look, because this is a single pole, here's my cable over here. This is not a dual pole, this is a single pole. They have to use twice the cable size, but to keep the cradle from tweaking, you have to look at the size and the structure of the actual cradle. Now you're asking about the manufacturing, you're also asking about how people actually want to protect it. Here's something unique and innovative. So they use a curtain system. Flow uses just a different mouse trap, so when the boat comes up, the canopy covers up the boat.
Oh, so the whole canopy is tilting to go over the
Correct.
boat, and then you're bringing the boat into the canopy
Correct.
rather than bringing the canopy around the boat.
Correct.
But that one is still lifting the boat, but
Correct.
just not as high.
Correct.
And it doesn't have this tilt function.
Correct.
Interesting.
It's just a different mousetrap.
Yeah. Yeah. Different
So-
ways to skin the cat.
Correct. And when you want to go out, you lower the boat, canopy comes up.
Yeah. So for these manufacturers, how closely are you working with them on the engineer? You know, I know you work heavily on the service and install side of things. How are you getting that feedback to the manufacturer and saying, hey, you know what, this, I'm not saying this one is, but theoretically, like, hey, this weld joint keeps failing. How are we testing these? How are you getting that info back to them, the feedback?
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
So what happens is the manufacturing engineers actually call the installers.
Yeah.
And they find out who the better installers are, and they say, what are you seeing out in the field? So we'll have a couple beta tests out there.
Yep.
Perfect example, when they were doing this right here was originally designed to have it turned.
Yep.
The problem was that the cable, they liked it being turned 90, but the installers contacted the engineers and said, it's binding, it's rubbing, it's not getting a clean pull.
And you're
So
also
they
going to
actually-
fray your cable over time and all sorts of things.
So they re-engineered it so it looks this way and it works this way. It's not uncommon. The engineers are always contacting the field guys. They get a much better representation. The problem is a lot of the engineers don't have the field experience and the field guys don't have the math experience, but they know it works. So they're real big about going out in the field and say, what is working, what is not working.
Yeah, it's where the engineering science meets practicality.
Correct.
Right?
And
the
that
intersection
happens
of
here,
those.
especially when it comes to like just doing these, setting these up properly. A lot of times the engineers don't quite understand. They're focused on one item and they're not quite seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Whereas the installers who are living that lifestyle know, this actually needs to be channeled more this way because it's not holding the boat proper.
Yeah.
So they're looking at many different avenues.
Yeah, so down to like how exactly, as you go to lift this up, right, for a pontoon setup or something, is it actually holding that pontoon?
Correct.
Is the span wide enough? Is it chamfered in the right way?
Correct.
Right, all those angles, yeah,
Correct.
the practicality.
Correct.
This is great. I think one of the last questions I have, right, and we're seeing this on automotive, in agricultural, in all sorts of sectors, we're seeing manufacturers really struggle with not passing on all the cost to the customers, right? Because the cost of labor is going up, the cost of the materials is going up. You know, have you seen any of that, like the cost discussion, the rubber meet the road in terms of these lifts and have to make trade-offs, et cetera?
We have seen a lot of that in our industry. In the past 2 years, we've seen prices go up anywhere from 15 to 30%. And
Which is massive.
it's huge. The cost of aluminum is almost doubled, especially extruded aluminum.
Sure.
We don't like to pass that cost. I know the manufacturers don't. Unfortunately, it just goes right down the line. I guess the best way to describe it, in 2017, when I was a boat dealer, the most expensive boat I was selling was $189,000. That same boat now is $425,000.
It's unbelievable.
And nothing's really changed.
Right.
Now, some of the innovations on these, there's been some really good innovations. Wireless remote, Bluetooth capability. You can see the functions of the hoist from your phone. You can pull it up and you can see the battery life. You can see how many times it's been cycled, how many times it's been used. But at the same time, if the cost keeps going up, we're concerned, when does it stop?
Well, you're getting a 2 to 3x multiple in price, but you're not directly seeing a 2 to 3x multiple in the customer value, so to speak. And that's the challenge, right? And that's the same thing in automotive, different factors, but a similar relationship between features and the value that we're providing. And so, I mean, this is at its crux, like what Munro is focused on. It's how do we help both the customer and the manufacturer keep costs at bay with intelligent engineering and good manufacturing practice and innovation in order to keep the business model alive, keep the customers happy at the same time. And it is not an easy balance, because if those costs are going up, you have to protect your margins as a business, and you can't do that when the raw cost of aluminum is going up, or the labor or the engineering, et cetera.
That's the biggest problem that we're seeing in the marine industry, is the cost of labor. The other thing that we're seeing, these boat lifts have become very technical. Yeah, it's a bunch of aluminum pieces. They're all bolted together.
Yep.
But now they're building with such precision that if this boat lift is not sitting in the water level, it's not going to function properly. Now you have to train someone to build it properly. A perfect example, we see this all the time when we do warranty work. This bolt right here is shorter than this one. You see the extrusion here?
Yep.
It's not uncommon when I have to go out into the field and do warranty claims on someone else's product, if this bolt and that bolt up there is actually shorter than this one.
Right.
But they're all the same.
Yep.
Thread pitch. The problem is if the bolt is in the wrong place, it's not built right, the manufacturer can void the warranty.
That's right.
And I respect the manufacturer wanting to void the warranty because that's money out of their pocket.
Of course.
Now you have to make sure you pay the installer the proper training to be able to do what it was designed to do.
One of the things that you're pointing out, right? We call this in manufacturing, there's poka-yoke, which is ensuring that you cannot possibly install it correctly. So it short circuits the failure mode, right? So as an example here with the shorter bolt, to get the right thread engagement, right? One of the things that you could do is change one of the clamp dimensions to such a smaller dimension, if feasible, such that the one bolt wouldn't actually even pass through. So you wouldn't actually be able to thread it on. But if you're getting half the thread engagement, it's gonna work, it'll still clamp together, but if you have an issue, now it voids the warranty. So it goes down to, are we thinking through the manufacturers? Are we engineering it and manufacturing it in such a way that it is literally impossible to build incorrectly? That's part of the objective.
This manufacturer does a fantastic job of doing their stuff in blister packs. So everything that we get for this, step 1, step 2, step 3, it's all individually wrapped and it shows exactly where it goes. The problem is that they've done a very good job of packaging it. They've done a very good job of instructing where it's got to go. But then when you have the laborer takes his razor knife, cuts it open, spreads out all the stuff because he wants to put the washers on.
That's right.
Forgets what bolt goes where.
That's right.
And that's the dilemma that we're having is just having people. Manufacturing can do all they want, but if someone's going to find a way to screw it up,
well, and I think
that's a frustrating thing.
What you're highlighting is oftentimes with these, and it's agnostic related to product. Many products out there do come down to just proper skilled labor. Do the laborers involved understand the product? Have they gotten the right training? Do they have the right instructions? Because it is a skilled thing. Not anybody can jump in and do it, right? Well, Dirk, this has been an outstanding overview. It's really exciting to see what you guys are doing. And we wish you the best of luck. So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy your videos.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.